New poems I've never read in public before, and I probably should ask at this point if you can hear me. It's okay. If you have trouble, wave a hand and I will try to up the volume. I'm doing a variety of things, and I think I should say at outset this is probably going to be a somewhat disjointed reading, because there's no particular logic to orchestrating it. It's just happened to be poems I wanted to try out on friends. And as you gather from my considerable age, I do think about death sometimes, and some of the poems are about death. The first one is titled Death Experienced, Remembered. Death was some flames at the end of an Air Force runway, and death was a plane finding our airport in fog, only to stall and crash and burn 9 men I knew, and the smoke of my January breath and the smoke of their flesh mixed as I watched. Now death is the silence of the living room in my old home. I've monkeyed around trying to write in a child's voice, and I don't know quite why I do that, but I get inspired to do it, so I do it. And this is supposed to be in the voice of a small boy, and the title is Blues, My Friend. It's also a passage in the poem. Blues, my friend, my hand's a star on it. Airplanes pull cotton after them to sop up the blood from bombs. My daddy drives a bomber. Mama dusts his picture, and even though I've washed, she won't let me touch it. She's gone somewhere crying. Somebody rang the doorbell to pray. Grandmother said, "We thank you anyway. We've got our own church." I laughed. We haven't got a church. We've got a house. I have to sit quiet and look at things. The salt shaker's red, red as the flowers Mama took with her. This soft cloth's blue, and it's my favorite, very best friend. My hand's a star as white as the ones on Daddy's flag. Someday I'll be a man. I guess not only the poems are new, but the paper is new too, and I have a hard time separating pages. Well, if that's the price for Oregon springtime, so be it. This poem is titled, Death Came Walking. I am walking toward where, for the first time, death will become cessation of starvation from the pressure of this finger with which I'm writing upon the trigger of a gun, uniting the flight of a pheasant with my plodding flesh and the genes of my children, and death is striding toward me in the shapes of 2 men, my father's pistol sent to jail for a while for trying to steal what little money we had for food, and death is coming from the farm where an artesian spring bubbles eternally, night and day. And climbing the windmill's 70-foot steel frame, I see the field where death came walking toward me become row after row of oats my mother and I labored to bundle into teepee shapes to dry, the sweat of our bodies evaporating into sky, and the earth content to feed us and to receive our bodies as food. When you're in high school, a lot of insignificant things happen, but sometimes rather significant. And I dedicate this poem to an older brother of my friend, Bob Boyes, Herb Boyes, who was one of the people I knew who were killed in World War II. And I visited his graveyard in Liège, Belgium, a long time ago. And so this is dedicated to him. Figuring it out. World War II cemetery, Liège, Belgium. Postulate penises, stiff as chalk. Just dust from having written over and over, bad boy, and not to do it ever again. Teachers' nuclear erasers banged like palms over ears together, and together in Christian cross rows, our army numbers for names our sweethearts had loved us as. Inform you that when pins plunged from hinges, exploded in enemy homes, and generations sprang from throbbing doorknobs, we were alive. I guess this is another of those poems which try to proceed with someone's voice other than my own. But the title is Autumn, my 88th. A day, a day Chris young kids called crisscross. The devil, Pa called damned Hoover, exorcised, and FDR, CEO of DC. Prosperity not just around the corner anymore, but here on the farm, Pa and Ma had worked like the Dickens' long days, as hot as the hayloft of hell, and in snow, not to lose to the son of a bitch banker. My sister and brothers and I got a present to share. What Ma, with no notion of the school book's collision course asteroids, called a kaleidoscope. As easy as turning the crank of her churn, all my crayon colorings teachers praised dawned in my plague-grimed hand. Leaf after leaf, tree after tree, earth spun its colors, such prettiness, and then wind, and as simple as finding my mother and father and sister and brothers no longer here. Life is pause, breed time, birth time, black lead pencil scribbles on beef and pork animals, bedroom walls, too grown up to understand. Well, Ingrid's my daughter, lives in New York, about as many miles as she can be from us here in Oregon. She and her family have a house in the Catskills, and this is about a painting that's actually in that house. So the title is Painting in Catskill House. And there is an epigraph from Ding Min Dao's The Lunar Dao Meditation 61, which came to be the death of the mother of a friend of mine, Sandra Elston, who sent the occasion of her mother's passing over. The quotation is, "You did not come from nowhere. You are here because of others, and those who have died are not forgotten, but live forever in us." Moon glow in wolf's breath, borne up, like the lamplit cabin below's smoke, like ghosts of ancestors fleeing or hunting again. Paired windows of the dwelling eyes of mate or of prey, panting veils tongue, blood drenches growl. It's oil paint pigment on cloth, and ink descends as black on paper, as tracks shadowed in snow, descendants destined to fall and to lope as certain as spring sun on and on. My only organization principle, I was kind of saving poems with kind of a more positive feeling about them. It is springtime, I'm not unaware of that. So I put them back toward the ending, so we'd end with a few upbeat notes. This is for Ingrid on our 40th wedding anniversary, and after anticipating our second grandchild. Daffodils or cardinals, an anniversary bouquet for the 40 years grown or flown. Full moon settled into petals, yellow impossible to write, a red sunset or dawns blazing into vanishing, or rising into glorious long anticipation of generations, unknown, unknowable, but yet inevitable songs. Quite a few of my more or less positive poems have to do with writing, so I guess that means I still believe in writing. This is a poem entitled Living in the Mouth. Jonah and the baleen whales, strainers spaced just wide enough to gulp tiny plankton, taught me, as did the millions killed in the U.S. invasion of Little Vietnam, the gap between myth and reality. Arms recomposed on photo paper hold my brothers who survived their wars. Time places them and will place me with mother and father gone, but a fourth grandchild soon to be born. I say that temporal sensations, lovely creations, will live on after all my tellings and foretellings are like the passenger pigeons singing of bare prairie trees. Ingrid and I had dinner with old friends who were up because husband needed a heart bypass operation, and that's something I've experienced a few years back. And so I guess I should dedicate this poem to Paul Germani, who shares that experience with me. It focuses on me, of course. After my heart bypass operation, my wishbone split, my wish to go on bearing my heart for the unborn. I turn to Sir Walter Raleigh, whose breast would have been halved like mine, his living intestines put to flames, his testicles cut, except that his family bribed a sentence reduction, mere lopping of his poetry creating head, whose piety encourages me in my nuclear world to stitch together this wishbone body, this wishbone poem. This final poem gives me some concern because it was published last winter in a magazine called December, and I remember that Galway Canal, who is my age and who just died a few months back, was concerned because he had written these poems about having sex with his wife and his son coming drawn to their cries of passion, and he was expressing some regret and concern that this is embarrassing to his son, who's now become grown up and aware of the full implications of that. This is actually, I think, a tribute to my granddaughter, but I'm not sure how she'd receive it when she is 18. Maybe by then I'll have decided. I can always suppress it, right? Two unsought revelations. A lesson in humanity, maybe. My mother put on display briefly an X-ray of her uterus, free that year of cancer and free from my 30-some-year-old sister and our 30-some-year-old brothers and one dead in infancy and 30-some-year-old me. Today, my daughter's daughter, 8, declares of delicate folds of flesh. There'll be a baby coming out of here, right here. And 86 and free again so far from cancer, I tactfully agree. Thank you.